Welcome to the makings of me. I'm Saniqua, and I want to welcome you to my new YouTube channel. This channel was designed by me to promote healing, give some valuable information, and to give you an insight and a glimpse into my life. This channel will go through the stages of my life from dealing with my parents' addiction to being a teenage parent. We will speak about self-care and how I have a self-care routine, and it's very beneficial to have a self-care routine. We'll talk about mental health and the trauma that comes along with dealing with the things from your past. We'll talk about some new things, and I just want you to come and take this ride with me as I share some of my experiences and give you an unfiltered view into my life. So this is the makings of me. Again, I am Saniqua, and I want to welcome you. The first topic I want to talk about is such a hard topic, and it's something that I never really talk about. Most people know that I was a teen mom, but nobody knows what went into becoming a teen mom and how that turn of events shaped my life. What I want you to keep in mind is that the age of consent in Ohio is 13. However, I was 12 when I got pregnant. And what I will say is that I was not ready for all the things that came with sex and being a teen mom. I was not ready for the grown-up aspect of the decisions that I made. Some that I didn't make on my own. Some that pretty much were forced. I will say that my first experience with sex was not ideal. I was fearful. I was afraid, and I didn't know how to say no. I feel like I've never really had a voice, so I've always kind of been a people pleaser and a just go along with it type person, which kind of sucks, but that is kind of who I was and who I am currently still growing out of. I still have my moments where I'm a sure, no problem, or I'm okay type of person, even when I'm not. And this is something I am learning to grow out of, not get out of, but grow out of, which is okay. My daughter's father was a few years older than me. We lived on the same street. We did not hang out with the same people. He just decided that one day I was going to be his girlfriend, and that was that. And I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to say no. He was like one of the cool people in my neighborhood. I hung out with his cousins, and that's kind of how that happened. I was and kind of still am, the bookworm nerd person. Love to read, love to be in the house. When I was out, I more wanted to, just have fun and hang with my friends. If they were riding bikes and sliding down dirt hills, and that's what I was on. I never really was like the girly type. Didn't really do skirts or things of that nature. Like, I just wanted to be comfortable and in my own skin. My comfort zone is in a book, honestly. And that was really due to my mom. My mom fostered my love of reading. She would order me books every month from all these different book clubs, and I would read those books over and over and over. Like, I can read a book and paint a whole picture. So for that, I am very grateful. However, when I got pregnant, my mom was deep in her addiction, is what I'm going to say. And so I didn't really have any guidance. I didn't really have a really firm, structured home at that time. Like, she was the disciplinarian, but she was gone. So she left, I left. And I got back home before she came back home. And that was kind of how life was over there. There was no real structure. Needless to say, I was 12 and pregnant. Had no idea what sex was. I remember lying to my friends, telling them I wasn't a virgin because they weren't, even though I had no idea what sex is. Didn't know anything about birth control, condoms, pregnancy, none of it. Had no clue. Was literally dumb to all of it. So I told this lie that, no, I'm not a virgin. I was like, it hurt, but I took some Tylenol after it was done. Total lie. So after my first experience, instead of me saying this is not something I'm comfortable doing, whenever he would say come, I will come. And that's how it went for a long time. My first experience, I did end up pregnant. I did not know I was pregnant because I didn't have a normal regular cycle. My cycle was very sporadic, and it was like a day or two. So it was nothing normal about it. But I was very active. I was a very active kid. Like, I was outside. I ran track. I was a cheerleader for a while. So I just didn't know. By the time I found out, I was 6 months, and the worst experience of my life. I will say that after my first time, I went home and I sat in a tub of water for hours, and I would just let the water out, put some more hot water in, because I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling or what was going on. I just know I'm bleeding all of a sudden. This can't be good. Maybe something's wrong. But then it stopped, and it wasn't like a consistent. So I was like, okay, I'm good. So long story short, I'm pregnant at 12. My 13th birthday is in November, right before Thanksgiving. My mom was like, we're going to go spend the holidays with her husband's family, which is on the west side of Cleveland. And I was so sick. I was beyond sick. I thought I had the flu. And that's just kind of how I felt. Like, I was sick. I had a fever. I was tired. And I was like, yeah, this just has to be the flu. By Christmas break, I was feeling better, but I was still not feeling my best. We were in the process of moving to Bedford. And so I was like, fake it till you make it, I guess. Like, I feel better, but I'm still kind of like sluggish and just not me. I went to a new school, so nobody really noticed the changes that was happening with my body because I was in a new environment. I was gaining a little bit of weight, but not much. I was very skinny growing up. Like, I was what I thought was the tall, skinny girl, but I had big breasts. I've always had big breasts. So there was no real changes there. My breasts hurt, but I just thought they're so big. This is what it's supposed to be. I would later on in life go on to have a breast reduction. One of the best decisions I ever made. Wish I could have another one right now, but that's neither here nor there. So at a new school, all these changes are happening, and my mom is in her addiction stage, so nobody's really paying me any attention. I took a health class when I got to this new school, and it was probably by this time, probably like February, March, and so they were showing a video on sex and pregnancy, and I was like, oh, that is disgusting. Why would anybody ever want to do that? And like, I never wanted kids growing up, so it was not even a thought in my mind that I could be pregnant or that I was going to have a baby. I sat through this class, and like some of the stuff they were talking about, I was like, that's weird. That's kind of how I feel. But again, I'm not even putting two and two together. Easter rolls around. We're at my aunt's house, and I had on this high-waisted skirt, and I walked past my aunt, and she's like, girl, you're pregnant. And I was like, what I wanted to say is F-U-B, you're a liar. But I was like, no, I'm not. Absolutely not. Like, how could you say that? My feelings were so hurt. I'm crying, trying to get away. I just want to go home. My mom's like, well, are you? And I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant. She's like, you better take her to the doctor because she's pregnant. Look how rounded her stomach is. And remember, I'm still skinny. I'm in like a size 2 to 4. Super skinny. My aunt's like, that's all she has is a stomach. She is pregnant. This is Easter Sunday. That Monday, my mom's like, you're not going to school. We're going to the doctor. She takes me to the clinic on the west side of Cleveland, Metro Health, and they do a pregnancy test. And lo and behold, I am pregnant. They say, we're going to do an ultrasound just to see how far along she is. And the ladies asked me about my last cycle, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like, they've never been regular. The last time I saw any blood was probably like October. And she's like, okay. And pregnant, very much so. And she's like, well, you are due July 9th. And I was like, well, how? Like, how is this even possible? And she's like, you're pregnant. And I was like, this is unreal. So maybe it was May. Maybe it wasn't April. It's probably May. Because I literally had 2.5 months left. And she's like, you're very pregnant. And I was distraught. So I'm thinking, okay, I had to get pregnant literally right before I turned 13. Absolutely. And so they're doing the math. And they're like, oh, it's probably around Halloween. And I'm like, okay, great. My mom's like, do you know who the father is? And I'm like, I do. Like, I've only been with one person. And so she's like, okay, well, we'll go tell him. And I told him, and it was like nothing ever happened. Like, nobody asked the whys, the hows, none of those hard questions. Nobody asked me if I was okay, if this was something I wanted. I remember asking a nurse when she told me I was pregnant if I could get an abortion, because I knew about abortion by this point because we watched the video at school. And I was like, can I get an abortion? And she's like, absolutely not. You are too far along. Like, it'll be dangerous for you. It'll be dangerous for the baby. And I'm like, I don't want a baby, though. My mom's like, well, you're not giving it up for adoption. We're not doing that. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because I don't want a baby. And it was basically like, oh, well, you're having a baby. So the next 2 months was kind of a blur because I just didn't want a baby. Like, I was still in denial about being pregnant. And people were excited. And they were like rubbing my stomach and telling me, you know, all this stuff that comes to the baby. And I'm still like, okay, and when I tell you I had 0 things for a baby. I didn't have a bottle, a pamper, a wipe, nothing. Not a pair of socks, nothing. Didn't have a baby shower. Didn't even know about a baby shower at that time. And it was just blah. I was distraught and I was in denial because who wants a baby? I am still a baby myself. My body is still changing. I am still trying to experience life, and now I'm about to be somebody's mother. Traumatizing is what it was. By this time, we are evicted from our apartment in Bedford. We are staying on 79th and Crum. I'll never forget this house because my aunt stayed upstairs. We stayed downstairs. And I didn't even have a bed. Like, there was nothing in this house. All our furniture was either repossessed or out on the street. My mom I remember she gave our living room set to my grandfather, and we were supposed to get we got a new one, and somehow it got repossessed or whatever the case may be. No ideas. I just know I had nothing. I remember we had 2 mattresses and a box spring, and my mom ended up stacking those up in the bedroom. And so sometimes I would sleep there. Sometimes her and her husband would sleep there if he was there. And if not, I just kind of slept on the floor, and I was kind of life. So fast forward, July 3rd, late night, I am in labor, but don't know. Me and my best friend, he's like sitting on the porch talking to me, and we're just kind of having a general conversation. And I'm like, hey, you want to take a walk with me? And he's like, a walk? I'm like, yeah, like I just need to walk. My legs are hurting. And he's like, okay. And we walk around the block a couple of times. And he's like, what is wrong? I'm like, I don't know. I got to go to the bathroom. I'm running back and forth to the bathroom. I'm like, I feel like I got to poop. I feel like I'm constipated. And I was in labor. So finally, he's like, well, I'm going to go home. It's getting late. And I'm like, okay, bye. I go in the house and I'm in so much pain. I'm sitting on the toilet and I'm like screaming because I'm in pain. My legs are throbbing. And my aunt is like, are you in labor? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, no, I'm not in labor. She's like, let's go to the hospital. We go to the hospital. Full-blown labor. July 4th. I had my daughter July 4th, 1990 at 1:30 something in the morning. When I tell you, that was like a horrible experience. My daughter, they said don't push, and I was like, I gotta push. And they was like, don't push. And I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to push. and I pushed, and you could hear the rip. And it sounded like somebody ripped a piece of paper, and my daughter ripped me from one space to the other. I had 96 stitches because I was ripped open. Like, and not even like a straight line, like a jagged line. So I have always had this autoimmune disease that nobody knew about. And it was lying dormant until I had my daughter. The day I had my daughter, it showed its face, and it has kind of wreaked havoc on my life. So I don't have a clotting ability. So in having a baby, I am bleeding, but I'm not clotting. And they're like, okay, this is dangerous for you. So I spent an additional 4 days in the hospital, laying on my right side, unable to get up, unable to walk, hadn't really seen my daughter, and honestly didn't even care to see her. I was in the hospital alone for 6 days. For 6 days, I sat in the hospital by myself because my mom was out doing her whatever. My daughter's father was MIA. His family was MIA. My family was MIA. I didn't see anybody till the day I got released. We get released, and I don't have a sleeper, a comforter, a car seat, a blanket, nothing. So I have to take what's at the hospital home with me. So the Pampers, the bottles, that's in that little bassinet thing that they put the baby in. Those are the things I went home with. That was it. I had nothing. By this time, though, my paternal grandmother has found out that that I've had a baby. And when I tell you, her and my great aunt came through, they came through with Pampers and clothes and beautiful dresses, and I still was like, I don't want this baby. Like, I don't even care about this stuff. I don't want this baby. My grandmother caught the bus to me to bring me all the bags of stuff. Her and my Uncle Chris. He was like my superhero. Brought me all these bags of clothes for this baby and all these supplies, and I still was like, I don't care. I don't want a baby. I don't want a baby. I just wanted to be a kid. But here I am, somebody's mom. By this time, it's mid-July. It's hot as shit outside. No AC, no bed, no baby bed. So, slept on a pile of coats in fucking 90-degree weather with a newborn. Y'all, when I tell you this was a traumatic experience in my life, and still no one is checking on me. No one is asking any questions. They're like, okay, she got a baby. So be it. I did pass the 8th grade, though. I passed with honors, graduated with honors in the 8th grade. But still, nobody asked me, was I okay? Nobody checked on me, the person. Come September, we are evicted from that house, and we're now staying with my mother's nephew, as she called him. He was one of her dealers, and he was one of her best friends, and he let us stay in one of his spare bedrooms. So now it's me and my mom, a baby, her boyfriend, him and his throuple of women, because he had 3 girlfriends at the time. They all had kids by him, and all their moms were his customers. So we were all in this 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. And when I tell you, it was a horrible experience. It was a fun experience because it was like all those people, but it was horrible because it was so much traffic. And again, nobody's paying me any attention. I'm not even paying this baby any real attention. And she ended up sick. She ended up with what I thought was a cold around Christmas time. My aunt came over, and my aunt's like, is she crawling yet? And I'm like, I don't know. Should she be? And she's like, oh, put her on the floor. And I put her on the floor. She crawled a couple steps or whatever, and then she like lay down like she was exhausted. And my aunt's like, oh, she has a little cold. I'm like, yeah, she's had it for a couple weeks now. My mom just, said, give her some medicine. She's like, oh, okay. In my heart of hearts, I knew something was wrong. And I was like, I'm going to go take her to visit her father, of all people. We haven't really seen each other, haven't been in much contact. However, I'm going to catch the bus from Superior to Gaylord. Straight across 105 on the bus. I get there and nobody's home. My friend Devonda, I was like, can you go to the doctor? Can you go to the hospital with me? And she's like, sure. And we went to St. Michael's on Broadway, and my daughter had pneumonia. In her left lung, it had collapsed. The hospital called Children's Services. Me and Devonda sat at that hospital for hours. She was in trouble. I was in trouble. Nobody knew where we were at. However, she helped save my daughter's life because she sat there with me. We ended up getting a cab to University Hospital because by this time the hospital had transferred my daughter to another hospital without my consent, without me even knowing, had already contacted Children's Services. So instead of the cab taking Devonda home, it took us both to the hospital. So now we're in even more trouble. She's been gone for 24 hours at this point. I think she was grounded after that. But I appreciate her for staying there with me. I really do. And I tell her all the time, like, you went through a traumatic experience with me, and I thank you. So we are at University Hospital. Children's Services is now involved. Child welfare is involved. My great aunt worked there, and she saw my name on the paperwork, and she called my grandmother. So now my grandmother is involved. And so we had a meeting with Children's Services. Children's Services, my aunt, my mom, my grandmother, the hospital staff. And so basically my aunt goes, my mother's a drug addict, this, that, and the third. And Children's Services asked my aunt, well, can she come stay with you? And she said, hell no. Hell no. My grandmother said, well, she can come stay here. And I was like, hell no. Hell no. I don't want to stay there either. I want to be with my mother. Like, who doesn't want to stay with their mom? Even though it was such an unsafe environment, I wanted to be with my mother. So here I am. Me and my daughter spent 8 days in the hospital. She had pneumonia in her lung. It collapsed. She was on antibiotics. She was a little underweight. She was progressing though, but she just still was. I'm a teen mom. I have no idea what to do. Nobody's ever talked to me about having a baby. She had very little, I had no prenatal care, number one. And she went to the doctor because I knew she needed to go, but she was behind on her shots. It was just a terrible experience, y'all. When I tell you, I had no one to help me with this. I was lost. I was a baby with a baby. And I was still very young-minded because this is not something I wanted to do. We lived with my grandmother. We moved in with my grandmother January 9th, 1991. I hadn't been to school in 6 months. Did not go. I went to high school 3 times. I was in the 9th grade. I went 3 times. The first time I went, the kids were picking on me. I didn't go back for 2 months. I would leave and come back home. My mother didn't even know. I went the second time. They were fighting as I walked in the door. And I was like, yep, not staying here. Going back home. Nobody even knew that I wasn't going to school. The third time I went, my hair had fell out really, really bad. And so I kind of like combed it to the back and did some BS with it. And those kids ranked me so bad in that school, I didn't go back. So I went to school 3 times from September to December. 3 times. So I had all F's. Didn't even care. My mom didn't even know I wasn't even going to school because her addiction had really taken over her life at that point. And we'll discuss my mother's addiction in another video. But just know, it kind of changed my world. So, moving with my grandmother, she enrolls me in Glenville. It's so funny, my grandmother went to East High to unenroll me. And she's like, I walked in that damn school and there was some kids fighting in the doorway. She said they stopped fighting and let me pass and then started back fighting when I got past. She's like, I cussed their asses out too. Because if you know my grandmother, she gonna cuss you out. So I went to Glenville. I took my daughter to school with me. They had a daycare in the basement. That is how prominent teen pregnancy was in Cleveland at that time. I had no clue. But they had a daycare. And so my daughter went to the daycare at that school, which allowed me to go to school and still be a present parent. By this time, I knew I had to be a parent. Because my grandmother was like, this is your baby, your responsibility. I'm not doing it. This is all you. So I took her to school with me every day. I caught the bus. and I took my daughter to school meet every day. I was in the ninth grade, 0 credits, so I had to work extra hard to graduate on time. So I did half of a year in ninth grade, and then I did a full year in ninth grade because I didn't have enough credits to go to the next grade technically. So then my second year in ninth grade, I took double classes. So instead of going to the 10th, I went to the 11th because I needed to graduate on time with my class. Because by this time, I was more focused. Still didn't have the support I needed, but because I didn't have that support, it pushed me to really go hard. It pushed me to want to make a difference and to be somebody different. I was trying to be the person I needed. So for me, I'm always trying to be the person I needed growing up. So I want to be that woman to the next person. So I was like, I got to do something different. I cannot be like everybody else. And I cannot be the things that people are saying about me. Because by this time, people are like, oh, she's just going to be another statistic. She's going to be somebody with a house full of kids, on welfare, no job, no education. I was like, okay, got to prove everybody wrong. Got to prove them all wrong because that's not me. So when I tell you I buckled down, and I did a year and a half in ninth grade, no 10th grade year, 11th grade. By the time I got to the 12th grade, I had 3 classes to take. So I only was in school from 8 to 11 in 12th grade because I worked my tail off to make sure I graduated on time, to make sure everything was up to par. I was killing it. I was taking double classes. Even I got pregnant technically my 10th grade year, but it was still my 9th grade year. Got pregnant again. I had a home tutor, and she came every day. And when I tell you, Miss Applin worked me to death, but she was like, you did it. You want to graduate? This is what we're going to do. Every class I had, she brought work every day. Even if I didn't have work in that class, she brought me work in that class. So I was on, I guess, maternity leave in 11th grade, but I was still on top of it, still right there with my class, didn't miss a beat, and she made sure of that. She was one of those women who sold into me when she came and talked to me. She was my home tutor, but she sold into me to let me know that I am bigger than my circumstances, and this doesn't define me. Yes, you made a mistake, and you're dealing with it, you're living with it, but guess what? It doesn't define who you are. And so I try to tell people that all the time. Like, your mistakes don't define you. And you have to use them as a stepping stool, as a learning curve to do better. So, yep, 16, 2 kids. But guess what? I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing to do the things I needed to do to survive. Being a teen mom was hard. It was not the end of the world, but it was hard. It is not something I recommend. So when I talk to teenagers, I make sure to let them know you are not in this alone. Yes, you made this mistake, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world for you. It is literally just a bump, and it's a hurdle that you can get over as long as you have the proper guidance and that focus and that determination to keep moving. I wanted to talk about this because I wanted people to know that being a teen mom didn't stop me. It was like a dream deferred, but it didn't stop my dreams. I was still able to graduate high school. I was still able to go to college and get a degree. I was able to get a couple of certifications. I have peer recovery certification. I have a chemical dependency license. I was able to become a qualified behavioral health specialist. So I've done all these things despite what I've been through in life. Despite it. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it helped. My past really helped mold me into this person I am. I'm very humble. I am very quiet, but I am very observant. And it's because I want to see the bigger picture. I want to see everything before I put my foot in it, before I pass judgment, before I start talking. So I encourage parents to talk to their kids. Like, I talk to my kids about everything. Like, they didn't know the story of me becoming a teen mom And I never want my daughter to feel like she wasn't wanted. However, I wish I could have waited. I wish I was given that option to wait. I wish peer pressure wasn't so strong and I had a voice to say no. I didn't have that voice. I was afraid. I was very afraid. I will say that. Like, not even just afraid of what would happen had I turned him down, but what would happen if what would people think about me? What would he think about me? And so I think at one point I even convinced myself, I do love this boy. I do. And I did not. I did not. Not even in a little bit. But I convinced myself that this is who I was going to be with. Like, we were going to be a family, and we were not. By the time my daughter was 6 months, this man had 3 more kids. So my daughter's born in July, his son born in December, 2 kids born in February. Like, this wasn't the man for me. This was never the person for me. He was never my person. He was just a learning experience. Somebody who took my young mind for granted and kind of ran with it. Like, that power and control he had over me at such a young age should have never happened. It should have never been allowed. But this is where those role models are needed. This is where girls, women, boys, men need these role models. They need these people to talk to them and explain to them it's okay to say no. You have a right to say no. And if you're afraid, speak up. I never had that option. I never had that person. You know, I grew up in a single mom, not even in a broken home, just a single mom. My parents were never together. After my mom had me, she had boyfriends, and the one was okay. Her husband was okay, but I still never had a man show me that unconditional love. My uncles did. They really tried, but they had their own families. So they were placeholders, but it wasn't a permanent thing. I didn't have a strong black woman to look up to say, oh, she's doing X, Y, Z. I want to be like her. I didn't have that growing up. I saw what I saw on TV, but it was TV. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have sisters. I didn't grow up with my siblings. My father has other kids, but we didn't grow up close. I didn't even meet a lot of them till I was older in age, till later on in life. I didn't even know I had a brother until I was 14. He was 10. So it was one of those things where I grew up lonely. And so to fill my void, I read books. Wish I had read a book on sex and what that was like, because I may have been able to avoid that situation. But I feel like God had a plan for my life. And I feel like I had to go through some things to get to this point, to be able to talk and speak about it. Yes, it took some healing. It took some therapy. And it took a lot of prayer. But I learned how to get through it. And I am able to speak about it and be honest with myself that those things hurt, but they didn't stop me. I feel like as a mom and a wife, we all go through things. You know, everybody has gone through some type of battle, some type of hurdle. But what did you do after? Did you stay and play the victim, or did you become the survivor? And so for me, I just want to survive. I never want to be the victim. Yes, it was traumatic. It's still traumatic just to think about my first experience with sex, and how when this video comes out, it's going to be some mad people. It's going to be people who has questions, and I'm ready to answer those questions. Like, I am ready to be an open book to whoever has a question. So if you have a comment or a question, please leave it. Inbox me, whatever you need to do. I will absolutely answer all questions. This is the makings of me. This is the first video of so many where I'm going to really tell you my story. I'm going to give you this glimpse into my life and how it shaped me. All these puzzle pieces shape who I am. So, I feel like as a woman, I am made up of 1,000 puzzle pieces. Some don't fit, so I have to take those out. And some fit perfectly, and they go in a couple spots. I feel like the makings of me is literally all the things that make me up. Being a wife, being a mother, working, going to school, being a friend, being a supporter, being a cheerleader for my kids, being a cheerleader for my husband, being a figure in my community, being a daughter, being a sister. I don't even know how to really be a sister because I've never had the experience to just be with my siblings. However, I feel like I'm a really great friend. I'm a really good wife. I'm an awesome mom, despite it all. And have I been a perfect person in any of these areas? Absolutely not. Nobody is. But I'm constantly learning my role. I'm constantly evolving. I'm constantly changing. And I'm constantly adapting to the things that make me me. So, again, this is the makings of me. Welcome. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you want to contact me, you can contact me on Facebook at Sneakwa Geddes, on Instagram at The Makings of Me 2024 or Miss Geddes 2. I am also The Makings of Me 2024 on TikTok because I did not delete that app even though they said it was going to be done. You can contact me on YouTube at The Makings of Me 2024. I am here to be very transparent, to answer questions, to give you what you need as you give me what I need. And I just want to thank you for being on this journey with me, for listening and watching. So please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be dropping videos probably weekly with different topics. And if you have a topic you want to talk about, let me know. I'm going to have some people come on and talk also. We're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about self-care. I'm going to talk about addiction. And I have people in my life who've experienced all those things with me or at the same time, but at different points, or like we experienced together and we formed a bond. So stay tuned for more videos, and thank you for watching. I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you.